So one of the main things that set Apex apart from every other battle royale game out right now is that Apex actually has a story and lore. Every single legend has a story, and even the Apex games itself is rich in lore and meaning. I want to shine a spotlight on some of those stories in this video, and the reason I say some of those stories is because this video is actually in collaboration with Alarmix. I'm sure you guys have seen his videos around, but basically I'm going to be doing half of the legend stories in my video, and when I'm done with my part, you guys can click the link in the description and check out Alarmix's video. So I'll put a card on screen towards the end that actually links to Alarmix's video, and I'll also leave a link in the description as well. Alright, so with that said, let's take a look at some legend backstories in Apex. Now first things first, we have to take a look at what the Apex games is. I think like understanding and just knowing the lore behind the Apex games is extremely important if you want to take a look at every single legend's backstories. So the Apex games take place after the events of Titanfall 2 in an area of space called the Outlands. People from all walks of life fight in this blood sport to win fame and to win money. The games were originally held on King's Canyon, as we all know, but it was briefly moved to World's Edge because, well, of Crypto. And speaking of Crypto, let's take a look at his backstory first. Crypto was raised as an orphan along with his sister Mila, and they basically escaped a life of poverty and squalor by becoming computer engineers. They designed drones used by the Syndicate to transmit the Apex games throughout the Outlands. One day, Crypto and his sister Mila accidentally discovered a prediction algorithm used by the Syndicate to rig bets for the Apex games. And this right here led to Mila's mysterious death. Crypto was framed, his reputation was destroyed, and the Syndicate also came after him. Crypto, his real name being Taejun, gave up his face, his family, his identity, and he tried to enter the Apex games and find those who framed him. Crypto actually wasn't able to get past the qualifiers for the Apex games, so he hacked his way in and put himself in the Apex games basically. Now in the Apex games, Crypto seeks justice and revenge. I think it's kind of funny that Crypto wasn't able to actually get into the Apex games in a fair way. He had to hack himself in. That's just really funny to me, but what do you guys think of Crypto's backstory? Next up guys, we have Mirage, who has kind of become one of the most recognizable faces in the Apex games. Mirage, being the youngest of 4 brothers, basically grew up and always tried to get attention by acting like a fool. The only thing that Mirage really took seriously was the holopilot technology invented by his mom. He learned all he could about this technology, and even when his brothers went missing during the Frontier War, Mirage, real name Elliot, and his mom, real name Evelyn, continued to develop these ideas. While working as a bartender to make some extra money, Mirage heard amazing stories about the Apex games and wanted to join himself. Eventually, Mirage's mom gave him a custom set of holo devices and told him to follow his dreams. Elliot then joined the Apex games as Mirage and quickly became one of the most known and famous legend. It all makes sense why Mirage is the way he is now, because he was the youngest of 4 brothers guys, so obviously he had to act a certain way, and his story just makes a lot more sense when you actually look at his lore and his backstory. So what do you guys think of the lore of Mirage? Alright, so now let's take a look at Gibby. Makoa Gibraltar is his real name, and he is the son of 2 S.A.R.A.S volunteers. S.A.R.A.S is basically an acronym for the Search and Rescue Association of Solace. Gibby was always good at helping others. He really only began to understand the value of protecting others though when he and his friend stole his father's motorcycle. They unfortunately got trapped in a deadly mudslide, and Gibby's parents had to save them, but Gibby's father actually lost his arm in the process. Since then, Makoa Gibraltar never forgot that sacrifice and devoted his life to helping others in need. Many of Gibraltar's friends and colleagues actually competed in the Apex games, but many of them never returned home. Gibby joined the Apex games to keep them safe, and his skills as a rescuer were put to good use. He then became an icon in the Apex games, putting himself in the line of fire to protect his squad and send his opponents running for cover. So Gibby actually never had a messed up story. He was always a good person. He just basically found a way to put his skills to use in the Apex games. Next up guys, we have Pathfinder. Pathfinder is known as a Marvin, a mobile, robotic, versatile entity. He was modified to specialize in location scouting and surveying, and he was booted up decades ago in an abandoned lab with no idea who created him or why. As a result, Pathfinder set off on a journey to find his creator. He took many jobs and also put himself in many strange situations to gain information about his maker, but it wasn't until he actually met a bartender, Elliot Witt, aka Mirage, that he learned about the Apex games. Pathfinder then joined the Apex games wanting to gain a following and gain fame and hopefully draw the attention of his creator. In the meantime, he remains optimistic and helpful, becoming one of the most friendly faces in the Apex games. Anita Williams, also known as Bangalore, was born into a military family where her parents and her brothers all served in the IMC. She was always a very talented soldier and topped all of her classes as a cadet. During a very large-scale battle, Bangalore and her brother Jackson lost contact with the IMC fleet and they were ambushed upon arrival in the Outlands. The squad scattered, but Jackson stayed behind to give Bangalore some time to escape. Anita then put all of her training, extensive weapon knowledge, and competitive spirit to use by joining the Apex games. She fights to raise money for her passage back to the IMC home base, where she hopes to reunite with what remains of her family. So I think Bangalore has one of the most straightforward stories so far. She was at war, she got lost, and now she fights to raise money to get back to her home. So it's a very kind of like straightforward story, but still very interesting to see her backstory. So what do you guys think? And the final backstory in this video is Revenant. Revenant used to be human. He used to be the greatest hitman the Syndicate ever had. Then one day, he finally saw what he had become at the hands of the Syndicate and Hammond Robotics. Revenant was turned into a simulacrum. Basically, he had most of his human memories, but instead, whenever he died, the Syndicate could simply bring him back to life. And every time he was brought back to life, his memory was wiped of his death. For 300 years, Revenant was basically an agent of death, a hitman for the Syndicate. It wasn't until Revenant killed Marcos Andrade, the father of Loba, when his programming glitched and he finally saw himself for what he truly was. He then hunted and killed every last person who was involved in his creation. Revenant swore he'd kill anyone connected to Hammond Robotics, and when the legend Forge, who was sponsored by Hammond Robotics, was set to be the next legend in the Apex games, Revenant killed him and took his spot. Now guys, Revenant's backstory is obviously tied in a lot with Loba's, and if you want to see Loba's backstory, I'll leave a link down below, and I'll also put a card on screen right now that links to part 2 of this video on Alarmix's channel. So if you guys want to know about Wraith, Octane, Watson, and all of the other legends in this game, the best thing to do right now is to head over to Alarmix's channel and check out part 2 for even more backstories and even more lore about Apex. I hope you guys enjoyed. That's it for me. Don't forget to check out Alarmix's video, and I'll see you guys in some more Apex. Till next time.